Hello and welcome to our second episode of the Cleveland Sports Bros podcast. I'm Matt alongside my brother Nick. Nick, how are you doing today?
Great, very excited to get talking about the second episode.
Yeah, me as well. So today we're going to talk some Browns and more specifically Baker Mayfield. We'll talk about the Guardians game from the other day, as well as the home run derby. So without further ado, let's get started. Nick, what do you have on Baker?
Well, there have been debates once Baker was traded. There's more talk about, both sides, the fan base and media defending Baker and, a little disappointed that the Browns traded him. And there's the other side that is pretty satisfied that they're moving on and getting a new elite level quarterback to bring in, hopefully to make the Browns a more better offense and overall team. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, the question that we're going to cover is what made Baker Mayfield, the player in his time here, such a polarizing figure. It seemed like he had a lot of ups and downs in his performance on the field and then in the eyes of the fans, of course. And we all know it ended poorly with him being traded after they signed Deshaun Watson. So let's talk about that. I mean, for Nick, what were some of the good things with Baker that made fans love him so much?
Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of but his college career. We all know in 2018, he won the Heisman Trophy. He was a two-time walk-on, the second college at Oklahoma. And many people that were in favor of Baker Mayfield, obviously the Browns organization, but from the fans' point of view, they saw an electric player who could be a leader on and off the field. And to some degree, he was. He didn't always have that it factor every single day, which might have, we always hear fans say the chip on his shoulder. He had it with him sometimes during game moments, but oftentimes, particularly in fourth quarter situations when the Browns needed a big drive to win the game, he wasn't able to provide the spark to help get the wins.
Yeah, I know we definitely saw that. Unfortunately, several games come to mind, but the two Kansas City games, one in the second round of the playoffs, where we couldn't quite lead the comeback despite Patrick Mahomes being injured for much of the second half. And, the Browns had a lot stacked against them. They were the away team. Some controversial calls as well with the Rashard Higgins non-penalty that was called on the head-to-head contact as he was reaching for the end zone. So obviously not all of this can be put on Baker. He actually had a decent game. But then also the first game of the year last season where the Browns had a chance and, with the ball in his hand in what could have been the final drive, and he threw an interception. We know that he kind of got tripped up a little bit, but it just seemed like an ill-advised throw regardless. And then I also think of, late fourth quarter drives that just fizzled out. It seemed we saw a lot of those last season.
Yeah, a big game that stands out to me last year when you mentioned more the fourth quarter comeback attempts. I believe the Browns only needed a field goal to beat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Baker turned the ball over. He threw 4 interceptions in that game. And to credit the Browns defense, they still had a chance. They were defending Rodgers very well, but turnover after turnover coming from your quarterback isn't going to cut it at this level. And Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam that thought about moving on from Baker and grabbing an elite quarterback such as Deshaun Watson could maybe help this year and for future years to put the Browns over the hump to get to where they want to go.
Right. So of course we know not everything was all bad with Baker. We're talking about why was he polarizing. So you mentioned some of the things that fans liked. What was that chip on his shoulder? He was a dynamic player in college. He won the Heisman. What else did fans like about his game?
They just love the excitement that he brought, and I think one player in particular he had a really good connection with was Hollywood Higgins, and he's actually being reunited with him in Carolina. I can picture, the many times in Cleveland, whenever Higgins scored a touchdown, Baker would race to the end zone and,
roll out the red
roll out
carpet.
the red carpet and take a picture of Higgins, and we hope he can have a great game with Higgins in his future with Carolina, just not against the Browns in week 1.
Yeah, I agree. And again, Baker is probably the best quarterback the Browns have had since Bernie. So there was a lot to love about him. We talked about it in the last episode. He brought the Browns and these fans their first playoff victory in decades. And it was great. At the time we thought it might have been Big Ben's last game. It ended up not being, but it was the final playoff game at Heinz Field. We were the last team to win at Heinz Field, which is always nice. But I think ultimately what got fans to sour on Baker and what got the front office to kind of sour on Baker, despite all the good things that he did, was also just looking at other people in his draft class. So personally, I wanted Josh Allen when they drafted Baker. A quarterback with size and speed, and then you see him. He's always going toe to toe with Pat Mahomes. He's proven to be an elite quarterback, a very dynamic player, and is probably going to have a very bright career. And then we also see guys like Lamar Jackson, drafted 32 overall in that draft, so way behind Baker. But he won an MVP, and Baltimore had a lot of injuries last year, so Lamar probably couldn't shine as well as we know he's capable of doing. But I think all of us expect Lamar to just continue to. He has to work on throwing the ball, which is odd to say for a quarterback. But when he's on the football field, Baltimore always has a chance to win, and it just never seemed like Baker was going to win them a lot of games. He was going to not lose a lot of games, but the Browns seemed like they were looking for more. They wanted a quarterback who could consistently win them games, and a lot of what we talked about of not being able to finish, come from behind drives in the fourth quarter when the ball's in your hand. Do you want a quarterback who can deliver or a quarterback who cannot? Obviously the answer is you want someone who can go and win that game. And it just seemed like Baker wasn't doing that nearly consistent enough.
Yeah, and that's not to point out that once Deshaun gets his chance to step on the field, we still don't know when that'll be. But that's not to say that every single time the Browns are in a final drive that he'll come through. But he has had several opportunities in Houston where he has come through. And Baker, right now, leads the NFL. I don't have the number in front of me, but since coming into the league in 2018, he has thrown the most interceptions. And that is a problem if you're hoping to become a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. So clearly a lot of good with Baker, but unfortunately too much bad. And that, that it shows. We talked about a lot of good reasons why fans love him, but also reasons why, fans might have got sick of him. So I think that paints a good picture of why they probably moved on. But, I'm sure we'll have this conversation again if Baker, leads Carolina to beat the Browns week 1. So hopefully as Browns fans, we don't see that happen. I want to shift gears now to the Guardians. Nick, do you want to recap or provide some highlights on their last game that they had before the All-Star break?
Yeah, so Cleveland has won 3 straight games going into the All-Star break. I was at Saturday's game where they beat the Tigers 10-0, and it was also a Jose Ramirez bobblehead giveaway. And Jose just, it was his day. He provided 2 home runs in his first 2 at bats, 5 RBIs, and Jose is also gonna be appearing in his 3rd All-Star game and 1st home run derby, which will actually be tonight at Dodger Stadium at 8 p.m. We'll cover that more a little later, but it was such an exciting game for all the fans, probably one of the most memorable regular season games I've attended in a long time.
Yeah, and you don't see 10-0 games all that often, especially for the Guardians. It seems like it's hard to shut anyone out in any given game, but to score 10 runs on top of that was definitely exciting to see. And what would have been their last game got rained out before the All-Star break, but always good to win that last game. Hopefully keep that momentum, stay afloat. They're kind of battling through some ups and downs right now, but a great game, like you said, definitely a great game to attend. And just, moving forward, hopefully we can string a few more wins together and be a little more consistent.
Yes, and I meant to add that although this past month they had some ups and downs, mostly with their offense, we saw earlier in the year they were putting up, a handful of runs, and they've been one of the better teams providing runs when they had men in scoring position, and they kind of fell apart in the final month, but excitement on Saturday, and they're only 2 games back of the Minnesota Twins. About a week ago, they were 4.5 back, but Minnesota had some hiccups, and where they are right now at the break, I know the Guardians will keep battling, and they'll give us some more exciting games to watch.
Yep, definitely a lot to look forward to after the All-Star break. So speaking of the All-Star break and the home run derby you mentioned, can you tell us about the home run derby tonight, or in? So definitely a lot of exciting baseball to look forward to. You mentioned the home run derby. Can you provide some details about that? I know that Jose is playing in it. What do you think we can look forward to seeing?
Yes, definitely. But one more note I want to make: 3 Guardians have made the American League All-Star team. Obviously, we pointed out Jose Ramirez, but also second baseman Andres Jimenez and closer Emmanuel Clase. But tonight's home run derby at Dodger Stadium, beginning at 8 p.m., Jose will be in his first derby, and he's putting up some pretty good numbers. He said 19 home runs, and I'm not so sure about his chance to win tonight, but I do believe he has the talent to advance to the second round. So regardless of who wins tonight, it's the first time in a long time I can remember a Cleveland Guardian batting in the home run derby. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch Ramirez play with, guys like Pete Alonso, Corey Seager, Kyle Schwarber, and Juan Soto, who I actually heard a rumor could possibly be traded from the Nationals to the Guardians at the deadline. So that's another thing to note on. It'll be very fun to tune into. That's 8 o'clock tonight at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is Carlos Santana did bat a few years ago in the All-Star game in the home run derby, and we were actually there, but he fizzled out. You might have slipped your mind because it was a really weak performance in front of a huge home crowd. So would definitely love to see Jose put up some good numbers and, like you said, at a minimum, advance to the second round and not fizzle out in the first round. So definitely going to be cheering on Jose in the home run derby.
Yeah. And continuing after the Derby and after the All-Star break, it goes without saying, Jose is, the leader of the Cleveland Guardians, and he may have had some tough games in the final month or leading up to the All-Star break, but I believe he can continue to put up those big offensive numbers, doubles, homers, and RBIs, can get him back in the MVP battle to win MVP. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we covered a lot of great topics today. We'll definitely be back for more in our third episode, but so far, thank you to everyone who's been listening, and have a good rest of your day.